So welcome everybody. This is session 6 of Find the Link Relationships, and it's on managing change, expectations, and red flags. And I'm hoping it's going to be a great session. I'll just start sharing my screen shortly. Okay. So for those that don't know me, my name is Temitope Praising Child. So this is just a brief overview of what we've been doing so far. So we've had 6 sessions before now, 6 sessions which include the 6 sessions which include the welcome session, which was on brokenness and healing. And then we had week 1 on motives, bias, and prejudice. We had week 2 on identity issues, 3 on the place of maturity, 4 was on the art of presentation, and session 5 was about making choices. Okay, so the aims of the sessions and the group is to enlighten, to inspire, empower, and to give. And it's for us to find the link to building and having healthy or healthier relationships, or the relationships of our dreams. So the outline for today is about managing expectations, managing change. What are red flags? What are the outcomes? And what is our conclusion? So managing expectations. So we're going to be talking about what are expectations. Should we have expectations? Things like that. So expectations are a strong belief that something will happen or be the case. And this is just a dictionary definition, really. And every relationship comes with an expectation under normal circumstances. And when people say they have no expectations, it's a bit hard to believe them, because even for relationships that are not long lasting, we have expectations. So for instance, you enter a taxi, you give the taxi man some money, and you expect him to take you to where you've asked to go. So you have an expectation that he would safely take you to your destination, yet you have never met him before, you've seen him for the first time. So that is a short-term relationship, yet it has an expectation. So there's nothing wrong with having an expectation. Sometimes you then have to think about whether an expectation is realistic, whether an expectation is fair, or whether an expectation is going to be met. So I think I've just mentioned this about deciding to have no expectations is unusual, and it's hardly ever the case. Some people try to insulate themselves against being hurt by saying that they have no expectations. Nonetheless, if they're very honest with themselves, they know they have expectations of their relationships, especially with a lifetime partner or their children or any other person that's close. Expectations need to be elaborated on, needs to be agreed and evaluated, especially between lifetime partners, which is what this discussion is about. That's the relationship that we've been concerning ourselves with. So common expectations, we've had a very bubbly, lively group, and some people have mentioned their expectations of what they expect an intending spouse to do for them or to have for them, and it's been really insightful. So common expectations will be an expectation of choice. So when I say an expectation of choice, it means that you expect that the person has chosen you the way you have chosen them. So that is an expectation of choice. And this is between lifetime partners, I'm saying, or people that are intending to be together. There's an expectation of choice that I've chosen you, you've chosen me. Then there's an expectation of care. So for instance, in a married relationship, you expect that your spouse cares about you. in different ways. That's physically, nutritionally, emotionally, spiritually, sexually. You expect care from that person. It is an expectation. It's also a very valid one. There's an expectation of counsel. And it means you expect the person to be able to speak to you, to enlighten you if maybe they saw you go in the wrong direction, or to give you advice when needed, to give you some form of support. There is that expectation as well. Of course, it'll be harder if one of you is not a teachable party. It'll be harder to give that kind of counsel, but it is expected. There's an expectation of cover. An expectation of cover is protection. So when people say, oh, I felt covered or I felt protected, there is an expectation that a lifetime partner or a long-term partner has your best interest at heart and is going to protect you, both in private and in public. There is that expectation, going to protect you in your family and outside your family. Nuclear, extended, you expect that that person protects you. There is that expectation. There is an expectation of humaneness. And I was going to change that to another C, which is an expectation of conscience. And that means that the person is good, like good to other humanity, good to animals. You kind of expect that. You don't expect someone to be like outrightly wicked to other people, or other human beings, or to be outrightly wicked to children, for instance, or to animals. There's an expectation of that. Even though we don't talk about it, we expect it, that this is how they would be. And another small C would be an expectation of consideration. So you expect them to consider your opinions, to consider you as a human being, to consider you as a partner, to consider you when they're doing things. You expect that they consider you, that they are considerate is an expectation as well. Whether or not they're going to be met is a completely different one, but maybe we can think of other common expectations we have. I think a lot of people highlighted on people being honest and people being themselves. So we expect people to be themselves. We expect people to bear themselves to us if we're in a long-term relationship. Of course, that might not happen at the beginning, but that is something we expect in a long-term relationship. Okay, so I've gone straight to change. What is change? Change became very popular in Nigeria, where I'm from, after the last elections. And after some time, people decided they didn't really want that change anymore. But before I go off on a tangent, change means to make someone or something different or to modify. And I'll just give an example, like someone saying, I used to be a drunkard before I met my wife. She changed me. So people change. Some people are changed, but we can say that you can help people change, but really it's very difficult for human beings to change other human beings. So that would be far-flung to expect that you can change somebody. Another definition of change could be an act or a process through which something becomes different. So it can be an evolution. So some people can say our relationship, a couple can say their relationship deepened after they attended Find the Link sessions, for instance, or they could say that maybe their relationship changed after they moved to a particular country, things like that. Change can be gradual or fast. It can happen at any time. It should not be coerced or forced. It can happen to you or for you, meaning external circumstances can cause a change in your life. Positive change can be encouraged through affirmation or modeling, meaning showing people the change you want to see. That's modeling. Affirming people means like encouraging them when you see that they're doing the things you desire. So that is positive change. The same way negative change can be encouraged, especially through words. So through harsh words or emphasizing the negative trend, it can be accentuated. So my last point on this slide is that a willingness to change is not equivalent to motivation to change. and it's not equivalent to eventual change. I'm hoping my co-host can help me mute everybody again. Thank you. Or please mute yourself. Thank you. So where was I? So I've just said willingness to change is not equivalent to motivation to change or to eventual change. So someone saying, oh, I want to change. I don't want to be like this anymore. Does not mean that they're actually going to change. Does not mean that they are motivated to change. And it does not mean that they are going to change. So that's kind of saying talk is cheap. The actions that are going to bring about that eventual change may be quite far-flung. Let's put it that way. So to exist is to change is to mature. To mature is to go on creating oneself endlessly. So change is not bad. Change is good, can be good. And because we are human beings and we're constantly improving ourselves, or we should be, so we realize that change is not something to run away from. It's just a call for us to do things differently. And sometimes we do that by ourselves. Sometimes situations happen that make us make changes in our lives. Okay, so common changes in relationships. Now, I put this slide, but before I go on to the things on this slide, there are changes that can happen from external sources, and there are changes that can happen from internal sources. So these common changes are quite broad and could fall within any category. So a personal change. So a personal change would be a man could be a personal change would be a man becoming a father, for instance. It's a life change, or a woman getting married. So it does not really matter that the change is positive or negative. It is a life change. It's something that has practically changed their lives. A person can have like a change that makes them draw closer to God, become more spiritual. It's a life change. So even though it's a personal change, because they're closely involved with someone else, it affects those people as well. And depending on how those people feel about the changes, it could cause a rift in the relationship, or it could make it even stronger. If I want to talk about cultural change, so some people move from one region of the world to another region, which involves sometimes adjustment of their minds to a new culture. Sometimes that changes the way people relate in a relationship. So maybe when they were in Nigeria, for instance, since I like talking about Nigeria, if they were in Nigeria, for instance, the man came home, met his food on the table. There were probably 2 or 3 house helps. The house is usually clean. Just things that you generally take for granted in that time. And then they've moved to a developed country in which they have now had to search for jobs. Money is not flowing as usual. They practically have no help, and they have young children, meaning they have to take care of their children. They need to take care of the home. They need to be financially sufficient. And within that sphere, they still have to take care of each other. And sometimes this is why relocation from one country to another can cause a rift if a relationship is not very solid and the couple are not able to communicate, because it is a huge change from one to the other. Job changes. So job changes could be that you've been in one role and you've stepped up to a higher role, which is busier, which could translate to longer hours in the office, which could translate to coming home more tired than usual. This will make a difference if you are the one that was supposed to usually make a dinner before you change your job or moved up the ladder. So these are changes that people might encounter that might cause a change in their relationship. Just a minute. I'll probably need my co-host to mute everybody again, please. Then there are hormonal changes. A lot of people know that sometimes when teenagers are entering a particular phase of adulthood, there are changes that happen in their bodies. Some people know that when women are at a particular time of the month, there are changes in their hormones that make them act differently. Some people have a lot of hormonal changes that are very difficult to manage. And sometimes it's before. I'm talking about a period now. So I'm talking about a woman having a period. So before a period, a woman might have headaches. She might look all swollen. Different things can happen. She might be more tired than usual. She might even be a bit more cranky. And some people then realize after they get used to their bodies that this is due to the hormonal changes at this time of the month. During the period, she'll probably not be receptive to intimacy at that point. She might be very she might be in a state where she's in a lot of pain, and so she's more likely to lash out or be cross if she's not being pampered at that time. Other things that can happen is that she might be anemic, she might be weak, and it's not a time when you probably want to be hearing someone complaining that this or that was not fine in the house, because she's probably dealing with a lot of stuff. So if you don't understand that there are hormonal changes at that time, you might be wondering that what's wrong with her, or why is she acting this way? And if the partner is not understanding, it could cause a rift. Okay, so health changes are wide. So there are physical changes, there are mental changes. People sometimes have a health decline, people sometimes have a mental decline. And when people have decided that they want to be in a long-term relationship, these are things that they don't get prepared for, but sometimes happen. And this is part of the for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health parts, because these are not things that we can see ahead of time. But with understanding and love, these are things that can be dealt with sensitively when they come, when they happen, especially when you get more informed about what is happening with that condition and how to manage it. Then there could be changes in relationships due to loss. So if you had a gentleman that was extremely close to his mother and now has a spouse, maybe there were things that she did or things that she said when he went through a particular situation, or maybe a prayer that she said for him in the morning when he's going out, and he just wakes up one day and begins to be very moody because he remembers that this is what his mother would have done. And if there is no communication about what he's going through at that time, or there's no attendant understanding, then it becomes a very hard time. It could be the woman at this time as well, or it could be the loss of a child, for instance, or a very, very close person that affects them. And it seems external, but it could cause internal things within the relationship. So just things to think about, really. Okay, so this slide says pain can change you, but that doesn't mean it has to be a bad change. Take that pain and turn it into wisdom. So many times it's not really about what has happened, it's about the attitude we bring to it, and it's about the actions we're willing to take about them. So handling change. So we've talked about different kinds of change. So I would probably say preparation is really important, because there's some things that we already know are going to happen. So if a single person is about to cross the threshold and become a married person, then you know that there are some things that are going to change. So thinking for yourself alone, I am all sufficient, I'm independent, it would need to be modified. It's not taking away your independence. It just means that some things are going to change to accommodate a new person or new people in your life if you're hoping to have children. And same thing, you're hoping to have children. Usually pregnancy does not happen immediately, but sometimes it does. But you still have 9 months before delivery to have some form of preparation. Also, planning for that means that hopefully is not when the baby comes that you're thinking about a child's name. It's not when you get married you start thinking about how many children you want to have. Those are things that preparation should be able to sort out. And communication as well. Then provision of support. So these are already people who are in a long-term relationship and who have chosen to be together. So it's very important that you are able to support each other through the change that they're going through. And being honest about the situation, being able to communicate your feelings are very important. And we do need physical support, meaning we need people around us. So you see wives following their husbands to their clinic appointments, and they're the ones that know what is what and which pill they were taking. And I work in a hospital, and sometimes a patient comes in and you say, who takes care of you? And they just say, my wife. They say, who takes care of you? And they just say, my husband. As in, it's almost taking for granted that the person that is your spouse or lifetime partner does take care of you. And we've talked about an expectation of care. So spiritual help, I believe I'm talking to spiritual people. So handling change can be difficult in many ways. And sometimes just supporting each other with prayer, with kind words, with that kind of spiritual support is extremely helpful. Sometimes it can involve maybe laying hands on your spouse, or putting your hand on a tummy or on a head, or just being available spiritually for the person, or deciding to fast for the person is part of helping the person spiritually. We all need help. Counselors can help with navigating change, because they're people that have been through this before, through this kind of change, and having that kind of support is very helpful in navigating this kind of new terrain. Okay, so this is a note to self. Change before you have to, and this is part of being prepared for change. Change is inevitable, change is part of life. Some people are in the older age group where sometimes they go to the other side, meaning they pass on. It's very important to be prepared for that change. So sometimes you've been dependent, you've had a spouse that has always cared, but are you able to do things on your own? Are you able to cook a meal, for instance? Are you able to manage your way around the house without help? Sometimes it's health issues that makes people not to manage it, but sometimes it's just a lack of preparation. And because of that, sometimes if one spouse had to be somewhere else, or one spouse had to go before the other one is just left stranded because they have no idea how to manage things. So it's very important to change and be prepared. Change is part of life. There are things we already know. We already know we're getting older every day. So there are things we need to prepare for as well. And sometimes things we need to prepare for might involve cutting down on things we do so that we find time for things that are important. So we're going straight into red flags. And what are red flags? So I've given the dictionary meaning. A red flag is used as a warning of danger. So I put a little example of football, and that in football, after 2 yellow cards, a red card is given and the player is out. Sometimes the red card comes out straight and the player is out. That's for those that didn't know. I know a bit about football. Red flags in relationships are things that signify that danger is ahead in the relationship and might be a pointer to one of the partners to exit the relationship. So red flags are serious things. Okay, so examples of red flags. So these are things that are very broad. So these red flags are particularly relating to the partners concerned, but sometimes they're red flags from other people. So they're red flags from the feelers we see from other people. There could be red flags from family. There could be red flags when we judge the relationship with others. So it's not only between the two people, but I've emphasized on the two people in this slide. So there is an expectation of consideration, of care. You would expect that there should be some respect in a relationship. It could be a red flag if there is a lot of disrespect, repeated disrespect in a relationship. And this has nothing to do with the age gradient whatsoever. There could be verbal abuse or any kind of abuse, actually. I've kind of emphasized on verbal and physical abuse on here, but any kind of abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, could be things that are red flags in a relationship, whether before or after marriage. Physical abuse, even if mild, is a red flag. So if you've not gotten close, the person's already giving you knocks on the head, it's already giving you a slap for any reason whatsoever, even at play, you should be concerned, because it means if the person has a reason to, the person could abuse you. Sometimes abuse can happen in families. So if there was a lot of abuse in the family, it was something you want to have a discussion about so that it's not something that recurs. I'll say the devil likes to repeat things that are bad. So you just need to be careful. I wouldn't say that's a red flag if the person is not abusive. It's just something to think about. Constant arguments are red flags. So constant arguments, not being able to speak, or not feeling you are able to speak is a red flag. Like you're walking on eggshells because you want to have a conversation is a red flag, whether before or after a lifetime commitment, it is a red flag. Forcing conversation, so just having superficial conversation, just because you have to, because you feel you don't dare have a deep conversation because it's going to cause trouble, it is a red flag. And so I put constant arguments. Of course, if you don't see eye to eye, you're going to have arguments constantly. The Bible says two cannot walk. Can two? It doesn't even tell us. It asks us a question: can two walk together unless they agree? So if you're not in agreement, it's inevitable that arguments are going to be rife, and it's probably not something you want to see in a long-term relationship. So having frequent conflicts will probably shorten your life. So you want to think twice about entering a lifetime relationship with constant arguments. Frequent outbursts. So we might be thinking about anger here, but it could be frequent outbursts of crying, frequent outbursts of shouting, frequent outbursts of being angry. So that could just point to some form of instability that is not under control and could be very negative and cause long-term harm if not tackled. Frequent crying could just be a sign of manipulation, which you probably want to watch out for. Nonchalance. So we've talked about the expectation of care at the beginning, about the things you expect. So if you're with somebody that doesn't care at all, it will be quite difficult to stay in a long-term relationship with that person unless you have decided that you want to live the rest of your life that way. So nonchalance means they don't care about what you say, they don't care about what you do. As far as this second person in your life is concerned, you could be dead or you could not be there at all. And that is a very, very sad existence, I must say. Now, people that are happy at evil tidings, those are people you want to be careful about. So when they hear something bad happens, the next thing they will do is laugh or say, oh, it's even good, that kind of thing. You want to be careful. You just want to be careful. It could be a red flag. It could mean that if something bad happens to you, they would celebrate it. And it could point to deeper seated issues going on in their hearts. Because as we know, we see the faces and we try and marry them with the actions, but it's only God that sees the heart of all men. Selfishness. So these are things to look out for, because entering a lifetime commitment, like becoming a husband or becoming a wife or becoming a mother or a father, involves a lot of selflessness, involves putting self aside, thinking of others before yourself. So selfishness is not a good sign at all, because the person is always thinking about themselves, always thinking about themselves. It's not a good sign. It's something that should probably be brought up and discussed, just in case the person is not aware. Intentional wickedness. So if you see somebody who is intentionally wicked, or the person is intentionally doing things that would upset you or would hurt you, it's like living with the devil, really. And it's a very, very bad place to be. And if possible, it would be good to be away from people like that if you can. If people are being deliberate about harming you or about harming others, harming children, harming animals, just being wicked for no reason. And it's intentional. It's not something that happened without them knowing. It is a red flag. I'm sure we have examples of other red flags. Maybe at the end, will let us know. Okay, so outcomes. So red flags, you could decide to overlook them. And some people choose this path because it is the path of least resistance. So they decide to overlook it and they live with it. And some people live with this all their lives. And some require a lot of grace, a lot of strength, a lot of inner resolve to continue to do this. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of work. And it does not mean that the outcome is going to be good, but they might be able to live in peace with themselves, but they don't have a happy relationship. And these sessions are to encourage healthy relationships, healthier relationships. That's what we're looking for. It could be at a risk to their lives to continue to overlook a red flag. So, but it is an option, definitely. Many options exist. There is another option, which is to explore the red flags. We'll deal with them in more detail on the next slide. And the other thing will be to deal with it. So to deal with it means to go into a process to try and resolve it. And the other outcome could be to move. So sometimes you see some red flags and they're not things you think you have the energy, the presence of mind, or the motivation to start to unravel. And you just decide, this is it. This is important. I am moving. Like the motto for November from a lot of people, we move, and from NSAS, we move. So sometimes moving is an option, and sometimes it is the healthiest option you can consider. Okay, so this is from the other slide. This is like the breakdown of what I've just been talking about. So the appearance of a red flag is a warning. Let me just move this box for a minute. So the appearance of a red flag is a warning that affects your future. It will be unwise to ignore it or to overlook it. It could mean injury. It could mean a death sentence or a lifetime of pain. To explore things means to carefully and tactfully find out more about the issue. Sometimes this can be a very loving thing because you're trying to find out what's trying to unravel the knot, like what has caused this. And because human beings are an embodiment of the experiences they have gone through and of so many other things, it could be really deep-seated. To deal with red flags means a process is started to reverse it, if possible, with self-awareness, a teachable and a humble heart, and with a lot of support from a loving partner. It is possible, but sometimes it is good to know when you need to say, no, it is enough. Okay, so walking away, either temporarily or permanently, are worth considering if your health, sanity, or life are threatened. And I spoke with someone who was having a very difficult time with his spouse and was talking about leaving and having other people on the side. He wasn't a Christian because he felt that he was being dissatisfied in his marriage, even though he had given his all to the marriage, and that he did not see a way out. And all I could offer him was to say, I don't have answers. All I know is that there's somebody that can help you deal with this and can show you a way out. Because sometimes we come to a point when we get to the end of ourselves and we know that it's only God that can help you out of a situation. Okay. Sometimes what you're most afraid of doing is the very thing that will set you free. So I have a friend that's given a Ghanaian proverb about if somebody wants to injure you, they first put their if they want to put their hand in your mouth, they first put their finger in your mouth to look around to see whether you have any teeth. So some people, what they're most afraid of doing is to say no or to say that they deserve better. And that's what they need to be doing, because that might be just the very thing that will set them free. Okay. I'll just move this slide 1 minute. While there might be many factors affecting a relationship and many indirect players, it is important to decide if the relationship is what is worth holding on to and at what cost. So this is something that you would have to decide on your own. And that comes with adulthood, that comes with making decisions, that comes with knowing who you are, that comes with being honest with yourself, even at the expense of realizing that being honest might actually reveal things about you that have made this relationship more toxic or more unbearable for yourself. Okay. You cannot change the people around you, but you can change the people that you choose to be around. So that is a lovely quote. I'm not sure who wrote it, but that is very important. I appreciate that you have chosen to be around, and I hope this has been an insightful meeting. So I've talked about knowing yourself, knowing your values. I'll probably say congratulate yourself for wanting better, because you deserve better. You deserve to have a better life, a wonderful life every day. You deserve to be happy. And these are things that you need to tell yourself and reiterate, and never, and not try and settle for what is not good. What is not good is not what you deserve. And it's good to desire a healthier relationship. And I think that's why we're all here.